Well, and part of what we're doing here too is we're trying to put ourselves in the minds of the people who wrote this. Like, what were they thinking at the time? Why did this amendment come to be something that that needed to be codified in a document?
The back half of the amendments, if you look at 6, 7, and 8, are all assumptions people just already thought were protected and just being codified. These already existed in virtually every single state, and they just want to make sure the federal constitution ensured these same rights as the states had, just on a national scale. And then we're going to go to Article 9, which I would argue is one of the most interesting and I think direct observations that you can see of the belief of natural philosophy that the founding fathers had through John Locke, the idea that rights originate from people, that the people are given the rights, whether, in the founding fathers' case, they believe that rights come from God and that those rights are then given up for security, but you were born with all your unalienable rights. What happens, the Constitution went out to all the states to be ratified, and then each state held its own Constitution convention to review it, and then all the states were sending that information back, essentially to James Madison, and saying, hey, I have X and Y and Z. Now, a lot of times, the people who were part of the constitutional conventions in their own states weren't part of the delegation of Congress. And when I'd say, this is the first 3 years under the U.S. Constitution that we're talking. This is very early on in congressional history. And then they're all going to James Madison, and James Madison is working with a team to review and see what's associated. Now, remember, the Constitution already existed. The Constitution was already operating. So there was an economic incentive. There was that alignment of incentives for states not to be too difficult, because you can just say, well, you already ratified the Constitution, so if you want to be difficult, well, then we're not going to have the amendment. So that's why a lot of these amendments were just so widely accepted, was because they already existed at the state level. And if they existed in enough states that were going to ratify those amendments, well, there was no way for the other states to fight it.
Well, if it was all basically universal to the states, then why did they feel the need in general then?
Because they wanted that overture of the federalist system to protect it. Now, Kyle, you brought up a good point. So before the federal style of government we have now, sometimes it's a misnomer when we talk about federal government that federal is a synonym for national. There's a difference between what a national government and a federal government is. Federal is a form of government. So you have central governments, where it goes national government, state government, local government. Then you have a confederate style of government, where the states are more powerful than the national government, and then locals at the bottom. Articles of Confederation were weak unless all the states agreed, so that's why they got rid of it. And then you have what not to add my personal opinions, but what I think a lot of economists would agree, which is the most efficient form of government for large nations, the federal system of government, where the federal government is the supreme law of the land, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, but everything not specifically weighed in the Constitution explicitly goes to the authorities of the states, and states can make better decisions at the more micro level to optimize efficiency. And economic efficiency is largely driven by institutions, and nothing is more important to an institution than a constitution, whether it's a federal one or a state one. The Constitution is beautiful. The Bill of Rights is beautiful. It's such an intelligent document. It somehow answers tons of questions and answers some of these moral dilemmas that governments have had since a bunch of cavemen got together and decided to govern themselves. It answers these questions, solves all these problems, and somehow survives 250 years later to support the strongest military on Earth in the largest economy on Earth. This is a brilliant document.
Dude, this is basically 10 sentences we just read out that basically solves all of these problems. That's insanity.
Yeah. And then but then you look at how Article 3 and how future amendments, especially judicial review, will come about. Yeah. And what happens? They develop a system to check themselves. They develop a system to say, we know the Constitution isn't perfect, so we're going to put a system in place that's going to fix these so you don't have to throw everything away and restart. I'm like, France is on its 5th Constitution. They're on their 5th Republic.
Yeah.
The U.S. has been cruising along on something that was written before we knew dinosaurs were around. That's amazing.